Right in front of me. Oh, wow. Alright, now it's first.
Hey, what's up guys? Nick the Informative Fisherman here, and today we're going to be going over salmon jigging mistakes. I have a how to salmon jig, I have advanced tactics on salmon jigging, so if you haven't watched those, go into the description of this video and I'll have the links to both of those episodes there. In today's film, I'm going to be addressing some of the more common mistakes that I see people making and some more advanced mistakes and things you can improve on to increase your hookup to land ratio. Hopefully guys, get you filled in a little bit better along the way. When we're out salmon jigging, you get a limited number of strikes and takes, and execution on those is absolutely imperative. If you're not overly critical on landing them and you're just looking to have fun, go watch the other videos on how to catch them. But this is for those people that want to get more fish in the boat. I think we all do, but every now and then I get those comments of the guys who apparently don't want to put more fish in the boat. So let's get started. Should we go for it?
Yeah, go for it.
Let's see.
No.
How heavy a line you got on?
15. Good.
We're not boat flipping it.
No.
25, I'd go for it. Oh, my leg's bleeding.
Check you out.
Dude, this dude is digging. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, baby. Oop, knock the jig out. Yep.
All right, Nick.
Not huge, but another good fish. Another good fish. All right, so in today's footage, I'm going to be showing you a trip that I recently went on with the owner of Boat Country, a good friend of mine, Brent, and another one of my good friends, Landon, that also works there at Boat Country. The first subject I want to bring up here, and this is in no particular order, is the hooks. I see a lot of people are always telling me how, oh, I lost it. I lost that salmon. Now, a salmon has a very hard mouth, and a lot of the time they're just striking at it. They're not trying to eat. They're in the system, moving up, they're going up to spawn. Eating is not on their mind. So when you have a fish that's slashing at you, whether you're up high beyond the bridges and you can't use a treble hook, but I'm talking below the bridges, still considered the delta where I'm salmon jigging, Garcia Bend, Freeport, Wimpy's, the McQualamy, those areas for jigging salmon where you have treble hooks. I'm going to show you a close-up on this now, so come on in with me. Now you're going to notice, see this big treble hook right here? How the hook point and the tip is basically parallel with the backbone of the hook right here, the shank. It's pointing straight. At no point, if I made this point a foot long and this shank a foot long, would they ever meet. Now you see this treble hook right here, how the point bends back in towards the shank, to where if the shank was a foot long and this point was a foot long, they would meet together. This is the type of treble hook you're going to use if a fish absolutely swallows the bait, if they're looking to eat it, okay? This will keep fish on longer. This type of hook is not for salmon jigging. Salmon jigging, the salmon have no interest in eating the bait. They're simply trying to wound it and slash at it. So round bends are imperative for that. Yes, you can hook some and land them on this type of treble hook right here, but you're gonna have a much higher hookup to land ratio on a round bend. Now another thing I want you to keep in mind when you're salmon jigging with your hooks, you see this diameter of the hook right here? This is a little lighter wire than this. This happens to be a double X strength, and this is a 4X strength. How the different hook companies measure that could be a variable between the companies on how they do that. But you can see this is a thinner diameter and this is a thicker diameter. That being said, when you're driving a hook point on a thicker diameter hook, if you're using light line or a line with a lot of stretch, the thicker diameter hook is going to be harder to penetrate. Therefore, you're not going to get as deep of a hook set. So keeping that same thing in mind, if you're using a stretchier line, or a lighter line, something with a thinner diameter is also going to be easier to penetrate. That being said, the lighter diameter has a higher odd of bending out. Therefore, it bends out, that salmon can get away, versus a thicker diameter. So I often say jig with 20-pound line. Now, when it comes to those line choices, okay, I don't like 100% fluorocarbon. It's got like 3% stretch, sometimes less, which is not enough. You're jigging 10 to 20 feet below the boat. This is a big problem when you don't have stretch. Salmon are lightning fast. If you hit them, if you're jigging up and that fish starts to swim up, you want a little bit of stretch. The reason for that is if there is no stretch on the line, let me get this jig off of here. If there's no stretch on the line, let me get some out of here. No stretch on the line at all, okay? I hooked the salmon. Now if I have stretch, the rod's loading up. If I'm trying to reel up and catch up, there's never any slack. But if there's no stretch and the salmon swims up fast, now this weight is leverage for him to shake it. Another hook point can get into him. He can leverage this hook point out. It's a bad thing. You want a line with some stretch. Don't use braid. Don't use fluorocarbon. Use something like P-Line CXX. And it's got about 15% stretch overall in the line. But that being said, the lighter the line, let's say if you use 10 pound versus 20 pound, 10 pound's gonna have more stretch than 20. That thicker diameter is not gonna have as much stretch unless you greatly increase the pressure. If you put 25, 30 pounds of pressure on there on 20 pound line, then it's gonna stretch. So that being said, if you're using like a 4X hook, a thicker diameter hook, definitely focus on 20 pound. If you got 15 or lighter, use a light wire hook. You always want to back off on your drag with a lighter wire hook. You can literally lock the drag down on 15 pound drag, bait casting reels with a 4X or a 6X hook to really drive those hook points at that point. But I want you to keep in mind, always check your drag when you get out there. You know, if you have that big super stout hook on there, lock that drag down, go ahead. That fish is gonna pull harder than 15 pounds of drag pressure anyway, so even locked down, it's still gonna have drag. But if you have a lighter wire hook, back off your drag some, enough to where you can put a good amount of tension on there and it's just gonna come off nice and easy. But keep it in mind, thicker diameter hooks need stouter line. So I say 20 pound copolymer line, whatever line you're gonna use, mono, copolymer, they're all basically the same difference. They're a nylon base line, just like all the original monos, but they have fluorocarbon properties now, which is referred to as copolymer when they mix the two together. But P-Line CXX is what I'm using now in 20 pound. Previously I used P-Line Floor Clear. I had a lot more stretch. It's more of a casting line, but I noticed when the salmon got about 50 or 60 feet away from me, there was a little too much stretch, but that CXX is what I'm using now, the 20 pound.
Right in the nose again. Oh, wow.
No, that's not a fish. That's just the trolling motor blade spinning.
There he is. There you go. Roamer.
Yeah, that's a nice trout.
That's a nice trout.
Hang with us, guys. We'll be right back. Oh, you heard they got weapons of big fish destruction? Well, you heard right. BWA Fishing Performance is the newest company hitting the U.S. market by storm. With some of the sickest swim baits around and non-cookie cutter style lures that you could ever get your hands on. It's time to show these fish something new. Visit bwa.com. Hey guys, did you know that yours truly is now hosting Lucky Tackle Box's monthly panfish instructionals? And aside from relentless fish catching, I'll be breaking down the rigging and the gear you need to get going along the way. And of course, a few extra tips to help you score more fish on the goodies included in your box. So remember, the tug is our drug. So go visit LuckyTackleBox.com and get signed up today. Attention Northern California anglers, have you been to Boat Country in Escalon with one of the largest selections of welded aluminum fishing boats from North River, Hughescraft, and now Crestliner? Chances are they have the right boat for you. And did I mention they have a full service center to take care of all your repair or boating maintenance needs? If you're a boat owner or just looking to become one, you owe it to yourself to check these guys out. Visit BoatCountryUSA.com or stop on by. We'll see you there. Bigger, better, badder. The evolution of the buzzbait is upon us. The Evolution Baits Grass Burner is a high-performance bass snatching machine. High-end components, inline displacement, larger profile, balanced body for fast or slower retrieves, better deflection, and oversized treble hooks. You wouldn't bring a slingshot to a gunfight, would you? Find out more at evolutionbaits.com. Did you know that P-Line makes specialized lines for all your fishing needs, from the super strong abrasive resistant CXX or the low stretch super stealthy CX Premium? Or maybe you're looking for invisibility or super bite detection with P-Line's 100% fluorocarbon. No matter what your needs, P-Line's got it covered. To find out more, visit P-Line.com.
time, baby.
Ever tried pulling a planer board next to your boat when trolling or fishing from a swift current bank? If not, you're missing out on one of the most phenomenal fish catching machines on the market today. With Yellowbird planer boards pulling your lines perpendicular to your boat, you can't help but catch more fish. Find out more by visiting www.yellowbirdproducts.com. Now let's talk a little bit about rod positioning for jigging, and I have covered this in my previous video, so once again, check the description for those. When you drop your jig down, you want basically your rod tip to be about this close to the water, the surface of the water. You want to touch there. You only want to lift your rod tip about a foot at a time. And if you lower your rod tip too fast, it's going to drop slack in the line. There's going to be slack. You're dropping your rod tip to the water, you're letting it touch the bottom, you're hopping it up at about a foot at a time. If you hop it up too high, and you're in this position here, and a salmon grabs it, you're very limited on setting the hook. You have no control over the fish if you happen to lift up right here and get that fish. You're basically losing all the leverage to drive those hook points. So a foot up off the bottom, a foot up off the bottom, and always follow your jig down on tight line. Let me explain to you what happens exactly if you let your jig free fall without tension. So take a look at this jig right here, okay? If I hop it up off the bottom and I follow it down with tension, if that salmon grabs it as I'm dropping it with tension, boom, I get the hook set on him, okay? And the hooks penetrate into the roof of his mouth. If I let it free fall, let's say he grabs it, now, boom, I hook him in the bottom of the mouth. Here's the real problem. Once I feel like I have him hooked, I'm gonna pull, and it's gonna put this hook into a serious bind right here, and it's gonna want to snap that hook point off, or it's going to want to bend that hook out as I force it up. The real problem there is more than likely it's going to throw that jig out of that salmon's mouth. You hooked a fish. If you would have followed him down on a tight line, you would have got him. Also, you're gonna tend to hook your line if you're letting it fall on slack line, and you're gonna feel like you have something, you're gonna bring it up, and your jig's gonna be hung up over your line. Always follow it down with some tension. You don't wanna lower it down super slow and lift it super slow. You do wanna hop it. You wanna give it a good hop to where it's gonna hop up off the bottom, and you're gonna follow it down. You wanna see your lines pretty much straight. You don't wanna see a bow in your line as you're dropping it. That's gonna help you hook more fish. If he grabs it on the way down, boom, that hook point's gonna be in the roof of his mouth. You're gonna have a higher odds of landing him, versus slack line, he grabs it on the way down, then the hook point hooks him in the bottom of the jaw. So notice, if you've ever caught a salmon, he's been hooked in the bottom of the jaw, you were dropping it more than likely with a little too much slack in the line, and oftentimes you're gonna see that where you felt like you had him on and then all of a sudden he was off. That's more than likely what happened. You got him in the bottom jaw and you didn't get good hook penetration, because once you went to penetrate those hooks, it was pulling the wrong direction to penetrate that hook point.
Boy, you look so good in that.
Ah, he's right there.
Come around, Brent, come around, come around. Think right, Landon, think right, think right, think right.
So cheap. Right. Nice fish.
Yeah, that one fits.
Now, I often get asked about the weight of the jig, and I've jigged salmon on 1 ounce. This happens to be a P-line laser minnow. You can use any sort of jigging spoon you want. The key is when you're drifting down with the current or drifting down with the river, if your line's in the water next to the boat, it should basically be dropping straight down. Let me get that off the tip of the rod. That line angle should be straight down. It shouldn't be out behind you. It shouldn't be out behind the boat. It shouldn't be out pulling this way. You want the straight up and down 90-degree angle. If you have too much angle in your line, you're gonna foul hook those salmon more often than not, and you're gonna think you have something great and you're gonna have to release that foul hook fish. So if the current's going slow, I still like a big profile. I tend to fish the 2 ounce laser minnows if the current's going slow. If the current's going fast, more often than not, a 3 ounce gets the job done. If it's going super fast, the 4 ounce will do it. But always keep it in mind that you want that 90-degree angle. That's gonna allow you to get them in the mouth. If you get that salmon striking out here and you got a line angle, it could miss his mouth and could hook him back here, and you wasted an opportunity. I still tell people 50% of those time, those foul hook salmon, they were still going for the lure, but the opportunity just didn't happen. We all foul hook them every now and then, but keeping that 90-degree line angle straight up and down is going to help you greatly increase that hook up to the mouth. Now here's another tip that's greatly important, and if you are fishing with others and not by yourself, they also need to know this. If I'm on the trolling motor and I'm jigging and I hook a salmon, I'll tell the other person next to me prior to me hooking that fish that once I hook them, more than likely you're going to be on the trolling motor. The reason for this, that salmon can go under the boat, he can go around the boat, and that line a lot of the time is going to get caught up in your trolling motor, it's going to get caught up in your prop, or hooked on your skag or under the boat. So let's say I hook that salmon and he's out here. Here's the front of the boat, the stern of the boat is back here. He's out here. This is a good position, but let's say this fish starts to come out behind the boat. He's going towards the big motor. Someone needs to know they need to raise that big motor out of the water. I do not want my line on the skag. It's also important that the person in the front of the boat now is turning the boat towards that fish. Okay, he's turning it towards that fish to where that fish is now staying away from the back of the boat because he's rotating us around. I'm going to show you a good clip on that of us doing that. Now let's say that fish changes direction and now he's headed back around the front of the boat. Whoever's on the trolling motor needs to keep it out here. You always want to keep that salmon in front of that angler. That being said, it's also important that the other guys in the boat know they need to step into the center in case that fish comes around the boat. You need to be able to follow that fish around the outside of the boat without getting blocked by a co-angler. Another thing with that, like I said, the trolling motor, they need to, if they can't keep the fish out to the side, they need to pull the trolling motor up. Someone needs to raise the big motor out of the water. If the fish goes under the boat, okay, I see guys still pulling and it's forcing their rod point back towards them. That's really bad. You're going to break your rod. What you need to do is get to the side of the boat, stick your rod under the water, basically straight down below the boat. You do not want the line rubbing on the bottom of the boat. That's real bad. It's going to give the fish loose line. It's going to give them leverage. You could fray the line. You can break off. You want to make sure that if he goes under the boat, you get up against the side of the boat and put your rod tip all the way into the water. Keep that fish off of the boat until he comes back and around, or until whoever's on the trolling motor can maneuver the boat to get that fish back out in front of you again. But it's the other person's responsibility that's on that trolling motor is to keep that fish out in front of you.
Silver bullet.
Silver bullet.
Silver bullet. She ate the dirty melon.
Oh, big one.
Yeah, nice fish. Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Later. Now, what it's important to do too, when you're helping your buddy and they're fighting a fish, you want somebody else on the trolling motor if you can. You always want to keep the fish directly in front of the angler. See right here in front of Landon, the line's pointing out here. I'm keeping that fish right there. Now as he's running away, I'm following him. This fish is coming back at us, so now I got to break back into the left. I don't want this fish to get under the boat. So right now I'm trying to turn away. If Landon goes to get over my head right here, I'm gonna have to get down low.
You should be good.
I think we're okay. Now he's turning back out here.
Yeah.
Always kind of keep that line right in front of him.
Oh!
Wow!
Showtime. Yeah, showtime.
What a show off. Quit making it jump, Landon. Keeping him pinned right against the boat. Whoa, I knocked the jig out of him. Got her?
Yep.
All right. There you go. Nice one.
Let's get some slime on the boat.
Okay, now let's talk about leading the fish. Let's say, here's the front of the boat, here's the back of the boat. I hook the fish right here. The fish starts to run this direction. I don't want to pull on him this direction. The reason why, if he's hooked and he's taken off that direction, I want to lead the fish. I want to be over the top of the fish. If he takes off this way, I want to be pulling up in that direction and follow him around. If he turns back this way, I don't want to be pulling this way. I want to follow that fish, the direction that fish is going. The reason why is you already have him hooked that direction. He's going that direction. You have leverage. The hook's clearly into that fish. Anytime you try to pull the opposite direction that fish is going, a salmon is extremely powerful. They're going to start finding leverage, or another hook point's going to get involved and loosen that original hook, that hook penetration. So the direction the fish is moving, follow it. If you see the fish headed behind the boat, you have to follow him around, just like I just said. Don't try to force him back the other way. That's going to give the fish leverage. That's going to move the fish. It's going to cause the fish oftentimes to come straight up. If you noticed, you're in the middle of a fight on a salmon, and think about it. Really think back when you lost him, or he jumped and that hook came out. You were more than likely pulling the opposite direction. When you pull the opposite direction, it brings that fish's head up towards the light, and then they rocket out of the surface. And you'll see pretty often when that jig comes off, it's because those salmon jumped out, they got all the leverage on that weight, and they shook that jig out. If you pull him the direction he's going, rarely ever do they jump. So keep that in mind, guys. Keep pressure over the top of him, but if he's going that way, follow him that way. Don't force his head up. You force that head up and towards the sky, he's gonna jump and he's gonna throw that jig.
Oh, good one, though. They got a nice striker over there.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. Bro. On some chrome.
Oh my goodness.
On some chrome. That's how you end the day.
Now here's a subject that I've covered probably in both of the videos, but it's so critical, you need to know. The netter. All right, now let's say I'm pulling the fish this way. The netter should not be that way. The netter should be on the position of me that I'm pulling. If I'm pulling this way on the fish, the netter needs to be over here next to me, because that's the direction that fish's head is coming. You need to be towards the position of that fish's head. If the angler's pulling this way, you need to be on that left shoulder. If the angler's pulling this way, you need to be off of their right shoulder, ready to net. You never want to be getting around the outside of the fish or getting under the fish. That also being said, like I said, when you're hooked up, until that angler tells you, fish, you need to be in the middle of the boat and ready. That salmon can maneuver back any direction really fast. So stay to the back, let that angler come around. If he's pulling this way, get over there. Get to the direction that your angler is headed. If I'm walking down the boat and I'm pulling him this way, I expect my netter to be over here and ready, because as soon as I say fish, now he can come in and get them head first. Head first is always critical. I call it trigger gripping. You can grip the whole scoop of the net right there and hold it right here. And as soon as that fish comes, you want his head directly in the center, and you want to drop the net at that point and scoop. If for some reason that fish changes direction, do not keep the net in the water and try to maneuver it. The current's going to tangle the net, or that net could get caught on the jig, therefore ripping it out of the salmon and losing the fish. If you miss, pull that net up quick, get it back in your hand, get back, go to the downside of where that angler's pulling that fish. That being said, once you scoop the fish, don't lift up. When you get the fish in head first, you pull backwards. You're gonna pull back, it's gonna trap them in that net, and you're gonna pinch them up against the side of the boat to keep them trapped. You're not giving that fish any leverage to jump out of that net and get off. You're scooping them and you're pulling straight back. There's no resistance lifting like that, allowing the fish to jump. You're getting them in head first, and boom, you're trapping them in the net right against the side of the boat till somebody can come over and knock that fish. Landon and Brent, man, once again, always a good time, fellas. Hey, if you guys want to check out these boats like we were in today, or some other Hughes Crafts or North River, make sure to go down to Boat Country in Escalon, guys, and talk to these two guys right here. Real class act dudes. Appreciate you watching.
I'll tell you right away, now what's the matter, buddy? Ain't you heard of my school? It's #1 in the